So John is joining us now from Ukiah as the Mendocino fires continue to burn at an alarming rate. Listen, John, I remember at the beginning of the day yesterday, we were telling people that this Mendocino fire was the 4th largest in state history. By the middle of my show, it was already the 2nd largest, and now today, the largest. What's going on with the Mendocino Complex Fires?
Well, certainly it has been growing quickly. Now, what we have to remember is it's growing in largely rural areas and wilderness areas. It jumped over containment lines or areas that they'd hoped might slow down this fire, but it moved very quickly with both high temperatures and high winds here. And as the fire has grown, this base camp here, this fire base camp has grown. There's now some nearly 4,000 fire personnel are working on the Mendocino Complex Fire here. There's something like 400 fire engines. We got 15 helicopters. There's a couple of big aircraft that have been brought in to try to contain this fire. This has grown and grown. As the fire has grown, the number of people coming in to fight it has grown, coming from all over the state here, really, to try to get this blaze under control, to try to contain it.
Yeah, when I read 14,000 firefighters, I sort of had to do a double take. It's sort of like a small town of nothing but firefighters working to beat back these fires. You mentioned that site that you're at, the campsite. What's it like there? You know, what are these firefighters going through?
Well, certainly these firefighters now are spending weeks and weeks away from home on fires. Fire season in California is now considered to be year-round, and we've heard things like firefighters spending 190 days and more away from home in these fire camps. Now, these fire camps really do become cities. It's about 14,000 firefighters across the state. Here in the Mendocino Complex Fire, it's almost 4,000 fire personnel. This is now a shift change time. There's firefighters out in the line overnight, watching the fire, watching for flare-ups overnight. They come in, begin to get some sleep during the day, while the daytime crews are now getting some meals, getting briefed, getting ready to head out back into the hills here, where this fire continues to grow.
Now, when we say the Mendocino fire is the largest fire in California history, I was sort of wondering what that means, because it's not the most dangerous fire. Can you sort of explain the difference between this fire and some of the other fires that are burning in California?
Well, certainly this isn't the most damaging fire in California history by any means. Something like 75 residences have been destroyed, and clearly that's a disaster for those people. But there have been fires in California in recent years that have destroyed thousands of homes. This fire is burning largely in remote, very hilly, rugged countryside. There are communities, there are individual homes, there are certainly properties, ranches, things like that in these hills. But as far as property damage goes, this is a rather minor fire as far as property damage goes. As far as the amount of land that has been burned, it's clearly the largest in the state's history, but that doesn't mean it's done the most property damage by any means.
In your story, you mentioned what the president had to say about a problem with water access, and officials there saying no, the problem is climate change. In fact, 5 of the largest fires in California, out of the 5 largest ones, rather, 4 of them have burned since 2012. So, you know, the experts that you've talked to, do they feel like this is the new norm, or the new norm is actually worse than what we're seeing?
Yes, the new norm in California is a fire season that goes all year, and fire officials say here that the cause of that clearly is climate change, that summers are hotter, drought is more common, that dries out the landscape here. It's normal in California. In most of California, there's very little rain, little or no rain from early May, late April perhaps, until November. That is normal. With higher temperatures, that dries out the landscape even more, makes it much more ready to burn, gives these firefighters a much more difficult time when they're out on these fire lines.
In your story, you spoke to that gentleman who said that he's got his shoes right by his bed, and you mentioned residents really permanently changing their way they live their lives because of these fires. What more can you tell us about what residents are doing?
Well, certainly one thing that people are being encouraged to do here increasingly in California is be sure that you have defensible space around your home. The recommendation is that for 100 feet around your home, you should clear out trees, brush, anything that could make it difficult for firefighters to get in and protect your home. Give them some space to protect your home. 100 feet of clearance. Also, neighborhoods are making an effort to clear out trees just generally in the neighborhood to make sure that there's ways to get out should fire come in, that you know an evacuation route. Often evacuation in many areas is much easier by foot than by road because you have fire trucks racing in, so be ready, have a plan to how you'll get out should the terrible thing happen.
Oh man, well that is good advice, but it's not going to stop that blaze. And I just look at the firefighters behind you and hearing how they're working for weeks on end. These are truly, truly heroes. John Blackstone, thank you so much.